On Friday, March 14th, Cyclone Pam, with winds in excess of 270 kilometers per hour, struck Vanuatu. On Saturday and Sunday, you had a really agencies scrambling for information and scrambling to get staff into the archipelago. But with more than 60 islands, you can imagine the extreme difficulty logistically of just finding out which islands are most affected and trying to get information from them. Today, we are sending myself as part of a small emergency response team to basically assist local agencies and NGOs as part of the Integral Alliance to bring those responses to scale, to essentially add value in terms of technical assistance and in terms of humanitarian experience, to leverage what they've been doing in the past 48 hours and to make it even bigger, to reach more people even quicker. This disaster is of a scope and a scale that is vastly outside the capacity of the National Disaster Management Agency of Vanuatu. And so it's hugely important that humanitarian agencies provide assistance and technical advice to not only the local groups, churches, and community centers that are already responding, but also to the government so that they can respond to the population. And so that's the role that Medair is playing. The main challenge right now is a lack of communication with the outlying islands. So because it's an archipelago and because many of those islands lack even an airstrip, it's extremely difficult to get updated information to know what are the needs of the affected population in those islands. So that's concern number one. I think concern number two is getting to those islands. As you can imagine, some of them don't have airstrips and they're only accessible by boat, and there's a lot of islands. So you've got small groups of affected population in extremely remote locations. One of the challenges and fears that we have in the humanitarian community concerns a disease outbreak. When you've got a lot of flooding, like what's occurred in Vanuatu, and then you've got people in an evacuation center, perhaps hundreds of families at a time, you have a prime opportunity for something like a measles outbreak, which is something that we're taking very seriously. So with Medair, that's one thing that we'll take a hard look at and really try to assess, particularly in those remote communities, what is the likelihood that this could happen and how we can best mitigate it and prevent it from happening. One of the first things that we'll try to do is to provide affected populations, wherever they may be, on the most remote islands, ideally, with the basic necessities of life. We're talking about just clean drinking water, food, and shelter. So providing them even with a tarpaulin to put over their roof if they have a roof left, providing a daily ration of food, whether it's just even rice, and then just clean drinking water. That's what Medair's supporters will be putting money towards in the first weeks of this disaster. But also giving us the ability to get logistics in place so that we can build on those recovery efforts for the longer term and make sure that these people are able to build back better so that in the next cyclone, the roof doesn't come off and perhaps they're living in a much safer shelter. I think there is personal risk anytime you respond in an emergency. However, at least in the situation of Vanuatu, there's no ongoing conflict, there's no tensions in the communities that we're aware of, and so in that regard, it's much safer than, say, perhaps responding to a place like Iraq or Afghanistan. It's obviously my job to respond to these emergencies, but I wouldn't do this job if I didn't have a great empathy for suffering people around the world. And when I look at the news reports and when we look at the data that's coming back to us about the situation in Vanuatu, my heart goes out to those people. And I can tell you, not only me, but those I work with in Medair are extremely motivated to provide as much assistance as soon as possible.